we all have a love for the art, and trying to work together to bring together our idea is sometimes the best way to, have a collaborative understanding of said idea. And the more people you have to collab on something, the more perspectives and different political and religious and background type of information that you can get to bring certain works to life.
Specifically speaking, the concept of Infinite Dream is a reflection and a discussion on the various threads of the American story over the years. Where have we been? Where are we now? Where could we go?
I think the world outside of particularly disciplinary silos is full of working with different kinds of artists, knowing to be able to work in mediums that you are uncomfortable with, being able to communicate. And these are like life skills that transfer beyond just the arts, but they're for critical thinking. The arts are like the centerpiece of the humanities and the centerpiece of the university.
Because like anything in life, if we're only working with people in our own genres or disciplines, we're sometimes missing things or not seeing another point of view or another way of thinking or another way of making or another way of solving a problem. And that's really, I think, where some of the real boundary pushing of creativity could come from is to connect, across disciplines.
Getting writers in the room, getting movement folks in the room, getting theater makers in the room, filmmakers, music makers, to really, I think, blur the lines between what it means to express.
And develop community that is rooted in sharing and questioning and failing and valuing the journey and the process, and not so much striving for this perfect image, but more understanding that none of us know, we don't know what we don't know, and that will continue and is continuing. And I think in that we have the opportunity to reach heights that weren't otherwise possible.
But that first only comes from understanding our backgrounds, and we have to be open enough to share that with each other. And once that wall is that barrier to say it's broken down, then we become a bigger and better community, wishing for more prosperous opportunities for each other and the growing efforts of said multidisciplinary artists.
Just by having interdisciplinary work and bringing in those different voices and points of view, we are inherently diverse, and we should be celebrating those different ways of making and celebrating the different ways of thinking, while also, of course, looking for the other check marks of diversity that's important to us as well.
In the contemporary art world, we're not just, especially as dancers, we're not just auditioning for companies anymore. We're having to be artists in many capacities. We're having to be multidisciplinary and in our actual art making.
We're really trying to see if the festival can act as almost as an instigator for transformation. And I think as we approach transformation, it starts to open up how we're engaging in our work, our creative work on campus, how we're engaging with our colleagues, with our community members.
As faculty, we're still working professionals. We're still trying really to hone our crafts, even as we're attempting to teach it. But we want to prepare students for tomorrow, the future. And the future is complicated, it's messy, and they need critical thinking skills and the ability to be able to do arts practice across genres and across mediums to really be able to make an impact in the world. And we want to foster that kind of teaching and learning, and we want to be that kind of teaching and learning.
Having that platform and being given the opportunity to have that collaboration really spoke to the possibilities of art and spoke to the possibilities of collaboration and how sharing stories creates an opportunity to make art that feels really meaningful, that's commenting on politics, that's commenting on art for social justice and change.
Empowering students to be able to use the technology to help tell their stories, to help make their art, to help make human connections through the technology.
The way that we can be most impactful in terms of when I think of impact in the world is when you can reach the human through storytelling. And I think all of the arts are attempting in some way to master the art of storytelling, be it that abstract or be that more visceral, but it is trying to communicate something about the human spirit.
I've been moved by a lot, through this festival experience. It was particularly affirming for me to see the collaboration that our International Writing Program residents and our Department of Dance students put together under the direction of Chris Regine McMillan. That was a reminder that, for all the things that we brought in, there's just like a lot of awesome stuff just happening right here. And I think that is an underlying element of this festival. We're going to invite in a lot of visiting artists, but we're going to make sure that the creatives and artists who are here on campus and in our community are also showing their work.
My experience is enriched here at the University of Iowa because I'm not used to having access to a bunch of different multidisciplinary things at my disposal. As a creator, as an artist, as a professional, and as a student, sometimes I find it very hard to come across other people and places and things that will just allow you to use their facilities and their equipment, all for the sake of creation and furthering your journey in art. Your voice is the biggest thing that needs to be heard, and that is very apparent here.
It's important to me to give students opportunity, to expose them, to have people at the table making decisions and sharing their art and empowering students to be able to use the technology to help tell their stories, to help make their art, to help make human connections through the technology.
Ultimately, we really hope that this festival can be one of the best representations of why this is one of the most creative places in America.